Okay, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. We are well into season 2, now we're calling it Blockchain Blueprint, Cryptocurrencies, Digital Assets, and More. And this is episode 13. Now, this one's special because it was actually requested directly by one of you. Lucas, tuning in from Los Angeles, California, this deep dive is for you. We hear you've been trading crypto for about 6 years now, so you know the space. Today, we're tackling something that might give you and everyone listening a totally different angle, what actually goes into creating your own cryptocurrency. And we've got a really solid guide to walk us through it. It's written by Katie St. Ors. She's a digital asset tax specialist, and she also produced this deep dive for us.
Yeah, it's a great topic. What's really interesting, I think, is that balance between the excitement, the allure of creating something totally new here, and then the reality check of what's actually involved. Material from Katie St. Ors does a fantastic job laying out a very clear step-by-step path, and it makes it obvious it's way more than just whipping up some code.
Oh, absolutely. So our mission today in this deep dive is really to unpack those key steps, the big considerations, look at the potential, sure, but also the very real practical challenges you'd face launching a crypto project. You've got this crystal clear vision, this purpose. What's the next big decision point the guide highlights?
That's the fundamental choice. Are you creating a coin or a token? And this is where the path, especially the technical path, really starts to diverge. Big time.
Okay, so break down that core difference for us. What's a coin versus a token?
Sure. So a crypto coin, think Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, it operates on its own, completely independent blockchain. Creating a coin means you're essentially building a whole new digital network from the ground up. You get maximum control, sure, over everything, the rules, the security. Yeah. But as the guide makes really clear, it's incredibly complex, hugely time-consuming, and very, very expensive.
Building a whole new universe, basically. And a token. What's the deal there?
A token is different. Think of things like Shiba Inu, which runs on Ethereum, or PancakeSwap on the Binance Smart Chain. Tokens are built on top of an existing blockchain. They sort of borrow that underlying network's infrastructure, its security, its way of validating transactions, all of that.
Okay, so they leverage what's already there.
Exactly. And the material we have, it's pretty direct about this. Yeah. For almost all new projects, for most creators, creating a token is the much more practical way to go. It's more accessible. It's the more common starting point. It just lowers that massive technical hurdle because you're not trying to invent, a whole new blockchain from scratch.
Makes sense. But just quickly, let's touch on that coin path again. Building your own blockchain, it sounds almost impossible for most people.
Oh, it pretty much is for an individual or a small team. The guide definitely acknowledges this. It takes deep, deep technical expertise, specialized knowledge, and frankly, astronomical resources. You're either building it completely from the ground up, total control, but insanely difficult, or you're doing what's called forking an existing blockchain, which means you take its code, which is proven, but then you still need serious skills to modify it, adapt it, maintain it for whatever your specific purpose is.
And the things you have to figure out. Wow, how does the network agree on transactions? Proof of work, proof of stake. How do the computers, the nodes, connect? How do you stop someone from just taking over the network like a 51% attack? How does it scale if lots of people start using it? The guide implies your developer team needs to be absolutely world-class.
Yeah. It's typically a path reserved for, very large, very well-funded organizations or projects that have a super clear, unique reason why they absolutely need their own chain and can't just use an existing one.
Okay, so not the usual route.
Not at all. Which brings us back, naturally, to the more common reality for most new crypto ideas, creating a token.
Right.
Trade in your boring job for a brilliant career using Adobe Creative Cloud. Start learning now with the free trial link in the description.
Using one of those existing smart contract platforms, the guide mentions quite a few popular choices.
Yeah, Ethereum's probably the biggest name, right?
Yeah.
It supports the ERC20 standard for most regular tokens and ERC 721 for NFTs, those unique digital items. It has this huge ecosystem, massive community. But as I'm sure Lucas and many listeners know, the downside can be those gas fees. They can get really high, especially when the network's busy.
Yeah, definitely felt that pain. What else?
Well, there's Binance Smart Chain, or BSC, often seen as a faster, cheaper alternative to Ethereum. It uses BEP20 for its tokens, and it's EVM compatible, which basically means developers familiar with Ethereum tools can jump over relatively easily. Solana gets mentioned too, known for being super fast, really high throughput, good scalability, though it uses different programming languages like Rust and C++ OS. So different skill set needed there. Polygon is interesting. It's presented as a layer 2 solution that sits on top of Ethereum. The idea is to give you lower fees and faster transactions, but you still get the benefit of Ethereum's underlying security. And then the material lists a few others: Avalanche, Cardano, Polkadot, Tron. Each one has its own kind of strengths, weaknesses, community, fee structure. You'd really need to research which one fits best for what your specific project is trying to do.
Right. So that's a big choice right there, picking the platform based on your goals, the tech needs, costs, speed. Okay, let's say you've picked one, Ethereum maybe, or BSC. What are the actual nuts and bolts steps the guide lays out for creating that token?
Okay, first step, and the guide really emphasizes this, hugely important. Define your tokenomics.
Yeah.
This is basically the economic design of your token, how it works financially. You have to decide things like the total supply. Is it fixed, like Bitcoin's 21 million? Or can more tokens be created, minted later on? And how is that total supply going to be distributed? This is critical. How much goes to the founding team, to advisors? How much is set aside for a public sale, for rewarding users, or providing liquidity on exchanges?
Hey, you mentioned vesting schedules earlier.
Exactly. That's part of tokenomics too, especially for tokens given to the team or early backers. You lock them up for a period, releasing them gradually. This stops people from just dumping all their tokens right after launch and crashing the price. It signals, long-term commitment.
You also need to clearly define the use cases within your project. Why would someone actually need or want to hold and use this token? And maybe, will there be any burning mechanisms, ways to permanently remove tokens from circulation, which could potentially reduce supply over time and maybe increase scarcity?
Yeah, and these aren't just numbers you pluck out of thin air. These decisions directly impact everything the token's perceived value, how fairly it's distributed, whether the community thinks it's a good long-term hold. For a trader like Lucas, analyzing a project's tokenomics is absolutely fundamental. It tells you a lot about its potential, its risks, its fairness.
Got it. Tokenomics, super crucial. Okay, once that's designed, what's next? The smart contract itself.
Precisely. This is the actual code. It lives on the blockchain, and it automatically enforces all the rules you just defined for your token. Its name, its symbol, like BTC or ETH, the total supply, how transfers work between wallets. It's all in that smart contract code. Now, you can code this yourself if you have developers who know the right language, like Solidity, which is common for Ethereum and EVM-compatible chains.
But not everyone's a coder. Are there other ways?
Well, yeah. The guide mentions using token creation platforms or services. These often have user-friendly interfaces. Fill in some boxes, set your parameters, and they generate the code for you, often using templates that have already been checked for basic security flaws, which is helpful.
A third way mentioned is taking an existing open source contract, maybe from another successful token, and modifying it. But the guide adds a big warning here. You absolutely must understand that code inside and out if you go that route. Don't just copy-paste blindly.
Right, because a bug could be disastrous.
Exactly. Which leads directly to the next critical step, no matter how you created the contract: testing, thorough testing, on what's called a testnet. It's like a practice version of the real blockchain. You deploy your contract there first, try to break it, find any bugs, any security holes, before any real money is involved.
Okay, test. And then the guide mentions auditing. That sounds important. It's highlighted as basically non-negotiable for serious projects.
Yes.
Yes. You need to hire reputable, independent third-party auditors, specialists who will comb through your smart contract code looking for vulnerabilities, logical errors, anything that could be exploited. Getting a successful audit report is huge. It builds massive trust with potential users, with exchanges you might want to list on later. It's a crucial step to reduce risk.
Makes sense. So only after all that, the design, the coding or generation, the rigorous testing, the independent audit, then you finally deploy it.
Then you deploy the smart contract to the mainnet, the live real blockchain.
Right.
This costs a transaction fee paid in the native coin of that chain, like ETH for Ethereum, and boom, your token officially exists. It's out there on the blockchain.
Wow, okay. That's quite a process just on the tech side.
It is. But as the guide correctly stresses, creating the token itself, honestly, that might only be half the battle, maybe less. There are absolutely essential steps beyond the tech.
And I bet these are often the areas where projects stumble, right? Like the legal stuff?
Bingo. Legal and regulatory compliance. The material is crystal clear. This area is moving incredibly fast, it's super complex, and the rules can be wildly different depending on where your project team is based and where your users or token holders are.
So rule number 1 is probably
talk to lawyers.
Trade in your boring job for a brilliant career using Adobe Creative Cloud. Start learning now with the free trial link in the description.
specifically lawyers who specialize in crypto, digital assets, and securities law. The guide says this is non-negotiable. One of the biggest potential landmines is whether your token could be classified as a security under existing laws. In the US, they often use something called the Howey test. If your token is deemed a security, that triggers a whole different, much stricter set of rules about how you can sell it, market it, who can buy it. It's a massive deal.
Okay, that sounds scary. What else on the legal front?
Well, if you're selling tokens directly, or maybe running a platform where people exchange value, you'll almost certainly need to deal with KYC and AML regulations. That's Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering. Procedures to verify user identities and prevent illicit activities. And don't forget data privacy, rules like GDPR in Europe. If you're collecting user data, you need to handle it correctly. Ignoring this legal and regulatory side, it's not just about getting a fine. It's one of the quickest ways to get your entire project shut down by regulators.
Yeah, definitely not something to brush aside. Okay, legal compliance.
Yeah.
Check. What else beyond the tech?
Community and marketing, this is absolutely huge in crypto. Tokens value, its adoption, its whole reason for being, really.
Yeah.
It fundamentally depends on its network.
Yeah.
The people using it, supporting it, building on it. You need to build that community.
How do you even start doing that?
It usually starts with a really good white paper, a detailed document explaining everything. The vision, the problem it solves, the technology, the tokenomics we talked about, the team, the future roadmap. You need a professional-looking website, strong branding. You absolutely have to be active on social media where the crypto community hangs out. That's platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Telegram, Discord, maybe Reddit. Engage with people, answer questions.
So constant communication.
Constant, transparent communication. Content marketing is key, too. Blog posts, videos, articles explaining your project clearly. Some projects use things like airdrops, giving away some free tokens to generate buzz and get tokens into more hands, or bounties rewarding people for helping with tasks like translation or finding bugs. Building strategic partnerships with other relevant projects can help. And engaging with crypto news sites, influencers, basic public relations. It's all part of getting the word out and building that vital network effect.
Okay, so you've got the tech, you've navigated the legal stuff, hopefully. You're building a community. What about making the token actually usable? People need wallets, they need places to trade it, right?
Good point. Wallet compatibility is key. The good news is, for tokens built on major existing blockchains like Ethereum or BSC, they usually work automatically with popular multi-currency wallets that people already use, like MetaMask or Trust Wallet. If you went that super ambitious route and built your own coin with its own blockchain, then yeah, you'd probably need to develop your own dedicated wallet software or make sure existing wallets can support your new chain.
And getting listed on exchanges, that seems crucial for trading.
Crucial for liquidity and accessibility, definitely. The guide mentions two main types of exchanges. First, decentralized exchanges, DEXs, like Uniswap or PancakeSwap. Listing on these is generally easier, faster, and often permissionless. You typically just need to provide some of your token and another asset, like ETH or BNB, to create a liquidity pool so people can start trading.
Okay, so DXs are the starting point usually.
Often, yes. Then you have the centralized exchanges, CEXs. The big names like Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, etc. Getting listed on a major CEX is usually much harder. It's often expensive. They might charge significant listing fees. And they conduct really thorough due diligence on your project, checking your tech, your team, your legal standing, your community size, your trading volume potential. It's a much more complex process.
Right. So getting listed on a big CEX is kind of a milestone, a sign of legitimacy for many projects.
It definitely can be.
Right.
But even once you're listed, the work isn't over. The guide points out that launching is really just the beginning. There's a ton of ongoing work.
Like?
Well, continuous development. You need to actually build out the features promised in your roadmap, respond to user feedback, keep improving the project. If you built your own coin, there's constant network maintenance, keeping it secure, stable, coordinating updates, making sure the nodes are running smoothly. That's a huge ongoing job. And for any project, active community management is vital, keeping people engaged, informed, addressing concerns. Plus, security is never done. You have to stay vigilant, issue updates, patch vulnerabilities as new threats emerge.
Okay, so thinking about you, Lucas, listening in LA, or anyone who's maybe just traded crypto before, hearing all this, it really gives you a whole new appreciation for what goes into a project, doesn't it? It shines a light on the difference between projects that have maybe just, copied some code and thrown up a website versus those that have genuinely thought through the why, the tokenomics, the legal side, the community building, the long-term plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely equips you to ask better questions when you're evaluating a project, you might trade or invest in. It raises that crucial question of sustainability. And the guide touches on those key factors for long-term success. You need a strong, transparent, experienced team behind the project. Transparency with the community is paramount. Security has to be baked in from day one, not an afterthought. You need a clear, long-term vision. Where is this going beyond the initial hype? And crucially, adaptability. This space changes so fast, projects need to be able to evolve.
Wow. It really is quite the journey, isn't it? From just an idea maybe sketched on a napkin to a fully functioning, legally compliant, community-supported, actively maintained coin or token. This deep dive, really leaning on that guide from Katie St. Ors, I think it lays out that whole structured, multifaceted path really well. And it just underscores for me that while the tech tools to create a token might be getting easier to access, the actual success or failure seems to hinge just as much, maybe even more, on all those non-technical things. The real purpose, the community strength, the legal groundwork, that long-term vision.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Okay, great. That's a wrap. I'm Katie St. Ors, and let me send out a huge thank you for listening. If you want more content on personal finance and small business, head over and find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, TikTok, and Apple iTunes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next Deep Dive podcast.